I am the gatekeeper of the stats and no one else can see them.
Hello and welcome to the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players. I'm your host, David Holloway, and I'm pumped as always to be here with you. I'm always particularly pumped when my brother-in-arms, Paul Bindig, joins. How are you, sir?
Mate, I'm even more pumped than you are because it's a bit rare these days. I've been getting on the podcast and we're trying to fix that. Thanks to you, David, but I'm excited to be here and very excited to introduce our viewers and our listeners to our cool guest, Paul Furness from Ballpark Music.
Yeah, look, Paul's an amazing player. For our overseas listeners, you may or may not be aware of Ballpark Music. Do have a Google and a YouTube before you listen to the interview. Their songs are amazing. They definitely have a following overseas. Probably bolstered in the past year. They've supported Oasis on their tour in Australia. I think they have a really good following in the UK and that as well. But do check them out before you start the interview if you like, because their music is just stunning. So we talked to Paul, obviously, about his more than 12-year career with Ballpark Music, his approach, and he's just generally a positive player and great player as well. So, yeah, I'll let you jump into that. And also, if you are watching this on video, do consider clicking on the join button below the video. We would really value your membership. It does help us keep this little boat afloat. Otherwise, jump in and we'll talk to you at the end of the show. Paul, it's an absolute pleasure and honour to have you on the show, sir. How are you this fine day?
G'day, guys. Very hot and sweaty and brizzy, but yeah, really well, thank you.
Yes, it's one of these valuable all Aussie editions with 3 different weathers in 3 different states. But no, it's great to have you on. I'm not so comfortable with the 2 Pauls and the 1 David, but I'll work through that.
Yeah.
So, Paul, I've just wanted to kick off. You've had an incredibly busy, I would argue, 12, 14 years, but let's talk about the last year. What have you been up to the last 12 months?
Yeah, it's probably one of our busiest 12 months ever, actually. What did we do? I think May, June, July, we did a big Aussie tour, including the regionals, which was awesome. That definitely pushed us to our limits, but we got it done, and that was really, really fun. That was 12 or 14 weeks, which was insane. And then we had a bit of quiet time in the second half of the year until we supported this little band called Oasis from Manchester. So we did those 5 shows in Melbourne and Sydney. And that was just unreal. Like, we had the best time. So cool seeing, all the behind the scenes, how all the big players do it. And we basically packed our bags straight after that and jetted off to Europe. And we were there for maybe 3 or 4 weeks doing most of, Central Europe, Western, and then finished in the UK. And then I popped over to Ireland to see my family and then raced home. And we did a little pizzas gig, which is our little side hustle, which is just before Christmas. And so that wrapped that year up. And then, to be fair, it's been a pretty slow start to this year. We have only done a few festivals and, having a little bit of a break at the moment, which has been lovely.
And so I am going to briefly talk about the touring, and we're certainly going to talk about your approach to playing live, but it probably is worth just jumping in here. Tell us about the Oasis stuff just before I forget. So, I mean, obviously the logistics of a tour that size are another whole plane. What were the learnings you took out of that?
Yeah, good question. My first memory was we walked into Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, and then, you walk out into the big arena and it's, absolutely overwhelming. And then the video screen is 64 meters by 12, which is just like straight away, it's just holy moly. We saw Noel immediately. He does the sound checks, which was really cool. I loved that. I respect that immensely. We never got to say good day to them, which is a bit of a shame, but they're busy lads. But yeah, just the amount of people and equipment flying everywhere was just outrageous. But they were so good. All their crew was really nice to us, and we got a sound check every day. And yeah, it was awesome. We had a perfect viewing platform, like right in front when they played. And yeah, so we got amongst it. It was awesome.
And even, would they be some of the larger gigs you've also played? I know you've played some decent sized ones, but they'd be some of the bigger you've ever done?
Without a doubt, that one. Absolutely. Yeah. Haven't really got close to that. That was huge. Yeah.
And what's your memories or experience of that? Like, what's the difference? Obviously, understands distance and volume and everything else, but yeah, what's your recollections of it?
We were absolutely packing ourselves just before we went on the first night. We rehearsed a fair bit, which is rare-ish for us, but we had the set dialed. We were pretty comfortable with that. We tried to do rockier numbers of ours that would maybe suit their fans more, I guess. But yeah, we were still so nervous. And then I think as soon as we got that first one out of the way, we started to really enjoy it. And overall, the crowd were good. We thought they'd be, jeering and hurry up and get off the stage, but no, the crowd were really polite, and I think we just tried to be really authentic and rock out and show that we're the real deal. So, yeah, we ended up really enjoying it, looking forward to every night, yeah.
You mentioned it was interesting when you were talking about it before, Paul, you said it's interesting to see how the real guys do it, how the big boys do it, but I think you're selling your own band a little bit short because, as we'll discover, listeners and viewers, Ballpark Music, if you're not as familiar with them, they are a bit of a big deal, particularly here in Australia. So these guys have done some big gigs. One last question on the Oasis thing, if you don't mind. How did you get the opportunity?
Fantastic question that I don't know the full answer to at the moment. Basically, the story goes, as far as I'm aware, is the Gallagher's, the third brother, Paul, he, I think, works in BBC Radio or something along those lines. I think he's a bit of a tastemaker music guy over there in London. And apparently Liam asked him out of the blue, hey, we're doing this Aussie tour later in the year. Do you know any Aussie bands who could support us? And we don't want to have anyone that we've played with before. So basically someone else. And then apparently Paul Gallagher just somehow showed him our song Manny. And he was taken straight away and then said, that'll do. Perfect. But that's all I know. So I'll talk it. We don't really know just yet, but yeah, that'll.
Well, it probably illustrates my earlier point that you guys are a serious outfit and obviously getting noticed. So wonderful opportunity. So Paul, let's take it back to where it began for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical upbringing and how you got into playing on keyboards?
Yeah. Well, my parents aren't musical, but my grandma was. She was an awesome pianist. So I think early days they lived on the sunny coast, so we'd go up there, my brother and I, for a week in the school holidays. And, my brother and I would be playing, and then as soon as grandma would get on the piano, I'd be like, see you later. I'm going to go watch grandma play. So I think they sort of worked out pretty quickly. I had some sort of affinity with piano. And then a few years later, a young lady moved down from North Queensland, and she started up a little piano school down the road. And I think I was just a classic, energetic 6-7-year-old boy with, too much energy, so we needed an outlet for me. And then so mum had no idea, but she's like, sure, let's start this piano lesson. And then loved that immediately. I loved it's funny, I feel like my earliest memories are loving the challenge of completing the homework for my teacher rather than the process of playing music, which is, I don't know if you know what I mean there.
Wow.
I enjoyed just doing the right thing and learning that way. But pretty quickly took to it. Then I started trombone when I was in maybe year 4 or 5 at school, and then sort of played a lot of trombone at school. So that was probably good for my ear back in the day. You don't have to set positions on the trombones, you're using your ear a lot more. And then, so played in lots of high school bands and orchestras and all that stuff, and didn't really probably I was doing piano obviously a lot at home and stuff, but it didn't really start playing with anyone till high school, I guess, where I joined the big band there and started to really get into jazz. And then I tried for the conservatorium in Brisbane and didn't get into the main course I wanted, but got into the starter course, and I was like, nah, stuff this. I'm sick of music. And so I took a few years away from music. I taught a lot of piano, but tried environmental management studying and business degree and hated all of that, and eventually came back and did a music degree at QUT, and then that's where we all met there, and the rest is history, yeah.
So on that subject, Paul, my understanding is that you all met at QUT, as you said, but you were kind of thrown together for an assignment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a weird start, I guess. So we, in the second semester of first year, we all had to basically pick an ensemble. So I was still in jazz world, and I was like, I'm just going to sign up for jazz ensemble and see what happens. But then I don't know what it was, but last second I went, you know what? Do the rock group. We'll see what happens there. And turns out I was the only pianist in that particular group of about 20 maybe. And Sam was the predominant songwriter, or he was one of the better ones in the class. Daniel, our drummer, was the only drummer in the group. He had a twin who played guitar, so he was coming along. And then, so yeah, we sort of just all got forced together in a weird way because, yeah, out of necessity, I guess. And then immediately realized we were, got along pretty well and, had a thing going here. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, okay. And so, I mean, when did you know, Paul, that ensemble and that assignment was going to turn into something more? So sort of how did the rapport build and how did you get to actually deciding to work together in a more formal way?
Yeah. Well, at the end of that first year of uni, we got the call up to play at the second year's end of year concert, which was a huge deal at the time. So that was at the Zoo in Brisbane, which was fun. But that was our first ever gig. So we were playing in front of second years. So that was pretty fun. And then we were like, well, that went pretty well. Let's, keep at it next year in uni and see what happens. And then basically the longer the degree went, we sort of kept getting gigs, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights around town and kept, playing every show that we got offered. And, slowly just realized sort of at the end of the degree, maybe we just keep doing it, I guess. No one else wanted to go and, study education or kick on to anything else. So it was the best thing at the time. But yeah, we were loving it. And I'm glad we stuck at it, really.
Absolutely. So am I. And so, I mean, in those early years, there was a bit of a do-it-yourself approach you took in recording the first 2 or 3 albums. I think it was your first 2 albums you recorded to tape, and then you did do a digital one, but then you sort of had this amazing experience of recording down in Victoria to 4-track tape. Just tell us about the evolution across those first few albums of how you approach recording, working together. Sam is the primary songwriter, but what input you have. So it's a very broad question, but just tell us about those early years.
Yeah, well, we did a few EPs before we did our first album. So this would have been 2009-10. And even then, like Sam was learning production at uni, so he was learning the ways, and he was doing a really good job. And he produced, I think, 1 or 2 of our EPs. I can't remember now; it's so long ago. And then we tried a few other methods too, and then sort of kept coming back to Sam. And then we met a guy called Matt Redlick, who's a Brisbane guy. Well, he lives in Victoria now, but he was a Brisbane guy at the time, and he was recording some of our peers, like Hungry Kids of Hungary. And we really liked what he was doing. So we did our first album mainly with him, I think, in his house. But that was pretty we were thrown in the deep end. Like we had the songs, but, you didn't have long to record all your parts. And, it was pretty go, let's get this done. But that sounds really cool. But that for me was only on piano, really. Like I think I back then wasn't playing too much else, maybe a little bit of Rhodes. So that wasn't too bad. He had a nice upright, so we'd sort of smash out my parts in an arvo. I was done, but that was cool. And then the second album, Museum, we did with Matt again. He sort of upgraded his studio, and he had some really cool instruments there. He had a nice Hammond organ, which I recorded on a few songs. And so that's sort of when I started trying a few other different keyboards, I guess, other than piano. And then, the third album was fun, Puddinghead. We rented this house out in the sticks of Brisbane, and that was the first time we did a self-produced album where we just had an unlimited amount of time. So we could just muck around and take our time and, try lots of different things. So that was really fun. And that's when, I started doing a lot more organ and discovered my 101 over here and, lots of extra keyboards and time basically. So they were the first 3. And then, the 4th album in Victoria, you mentioned that we went and recorded. I think we at the time just wanted to shake it up, challenge ourselves a bit, do something different. Puddinghead was awesome. But it's probably our most poppy sounding album. And we spent a lot of money getting it mixed, over in the US, and it sounds really slick and we love the album. But I think we always I don't know if it's self-deprecating, but we always try and do the opposite of what's going well sometimes. So we sort of went, let's shake it up, and we'll go down there in February in 45-degree heat and try and record a live album in 2 weeks. And I loved the process. It was so fun. Just the challenge of nailing your part, I guess, and making it sound cool. And that album's still up there with one of my favorites. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing album. And you just mentioned sort of things like in those early days, first go to be a Hammond. What was your recollection of that? Because I know for me that was one of the earth-shattering moments. Never come across a Hammond played it, went, okay, now I understand why people like this thing. Do you recall what it was like experiencing those instruments for the first time?
Yeah, I love the Hammond, and I think I was like blown away at how different it is to play than a piano as well, which is, it sounds obvious now, but yeah, just you have no sustain, and you've got to like hold your chords longer and do all these things, and the sounds and all the drawbars, and there's a lot going on. It took me a long, long time, and I dare say Matt, our producer back in the day, was helping and moving a few drawbars for me to make it sound better. But yeah, love that. He had a Mellotron too, which is so cool. Like just pedaling that thing, and yeah, I love the sound of a beautiful sounding Mellotron too. So it was thrown in the deep end a little bit, but yeah, loved it.
So, Paul, on that subject, over the last 15 odd years, the band's sound has shifted and evolved as it does with any successful band over a period of time. And you sort of mentioned that journey of going from piano to starting to fall in love with the B3 and the Mellotron. I'm really interested in how what you've played has shifted over that time too. So, how's your journey been with playing different keyboards, different sounds and different textures to fit in with the more lush sounds that the band's developed in later years?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved a lot. I think because I just purely played piano as a kid, and I just love piano, like I love ragtime and, boogie woogie and all the classic sounds, Elton John, all of that. I never, weirdly as a kid, sort of dived in too deeply apart from piano. But then, as the gear starts getting put in front of you and, friends drop off weird keyboards at the studio and you start mucking around, you definitely get more experimental and probably bored as well, But I love the 101. That's so fun that we always use that like to double up bass lines and, add that extra boost in some of our songs with a big riff. And then, I've had the UDO probably the last 5 years. We used to do lots of wacky sounds in the studio and then just work it through Logic or Ableton through a laptop, and it was a MIDI keyboard, and I'm so bad with tech. I was just like tearing my hair out, going, what the hell am I doing playing this stupid keyboard just to play some twee little line that sounds terrible? So Sam anyway stumbled across the Super 6, and it has been a godsend, like playing an actual instrument that can pretty much emulate what we do in the studio anyway. That's been so fun. But apart from that, I think we just sort of try and do wackier things every album, like whether it's more paddy stuff later on or, lots of the time, I'm what's the word? I guess I'm under no illusions that we are a rock band with heavy and guitars, and I'm the keyboard player on the, on the outside. So I'm perfectly happy with that. So lots of the time when we're recording, we'll do, guitars, bass, drums, all of that stuff first. And then I'm sort of the afterthought, the glue, whatever you want to call it, the icing, at the end. So I really enjoy that role. I love, sticking it all together and then, trying to work out what sounds are missing or what frequencies are needed to be heard or, anything like that. So often Sam and I will sort of come in, the two of us, and I'll be playing chords or something, and then he'll be like tweaking the dials while I'm playing to, we'll be mucking around, and then we'll sit on something and send it away to the band later that night, and they'll be like, absolutely not, or love it. So lots of the time it's sort of that at the end. But I'm definitely not a gear guy, so I'll sort of find a sound that I like and stick with it, and then if we need to change it, we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, you certainly got plenty of options there with the Super 6. And I promise our listeners and viewers we're not sponsored by UDO. Paul, you're the second person in about 4 episodes, because Hazel Mills loves her UDO Super 6 as well.
I love her episode too.
Yeah. So we had Hazel on recently. So no, amazing perspective. Thank you. And I mean, you mentioned earlier that you used to play trombone. Am I correct that you'll sometimes jump on the trombone live? And do you find that sort of that influences how you play keys as far as your brass influence?
I haven't jumped on for maybe 3 or 4 years. I officially retired my trombone to one of our fans, but it'll come back. Yeah, back in the early days, had a lot of horn parts actually. I've always loved music with horns. Naturally, as a horn player, you like horns. And then, so anything with horns, I've gravitated towards. And then, so a few of our early tracks like Black Skies, I Fly, one of our first singles has trombone on that. And it's a nice textural instrument too, we found. You can stack them up a few times and make some nice chords. And then, yeah, boost it up an octave and it sounds like a trumpet. So that's pretty cool too. So we're doing that a lot. And then I think basically it just got annoying to tour, to be honest. And then maybe our more recent stuff doesn't have it as much in there. So I was sort of like, are we bringing it for 4 bars of music? Yeah, let's not bother. But I do miss playing it. And yeah, I definitely think a big part of how I think of music is like a horn player. I love melodies and counter melodies and, them fitting in amongst everything else. I love that stuff. So I think trombone's definitely been an influence there, yeah.
But it is always good to have less saliva on stage, Paul. There is that.
Doing the bit fit, it's not the vibiest thing, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking before about you falling in love with the B3 of the organ, and if we listen to Ballpark music, we hear some really tasty organ stabs. Who would you say are your main influences around your approach to organ and how you like to use it to fill out a sound?
I would say unequivocally Ray Manzarek from The Doors. He, absolutely big influence on me. Dad used to play The Doors, non-stop back at home. So I've just got all of their catalogue ingrained in my head. But yeah, anything, our song Struggle Street, I basically just totally did it Light My Fire solo. And yeah, so absolutely Ray. I got into, there's not too many other organists I listen to. I forget the guy's name, Jimmy, who does The Cat, the other organist.
Jimmy Smith?
Jimmy Smith. How did I forget that surname? But yeah, never dived in too deeply there. But yeah, I'd absolutely say Ray is my number one.
Yeah. Great. And I mean, I know you said you're not a technical guy, but let's talk about just your broad keyboard rig from sort of those first early gigs, Big Day Out tour, all that stuff through to now when as you mentioned, you were supporting Oasis last year. What are the biggest survivors across those years as far as keyboards, and what have you sort of bought in or replaced over the years?
Yep. So I have had this Electro 3, Nor Electro 3 for way too long. Maybe, I would have got this 14 or 15 years ago. It was just as we started touring and traveling interstate and realized I needed something light and easy to lug around, basically. I had a heavy, I don't think they make them anymore. It's called a Nord piano, but it was a fully beautiful weighted piano. And this is when I only played the Rhodes and piano sounds really. So I didn't need anything else at the time. But yeah, as soon as you take one flight with that, you're done. So yeah, down to the Electro 3. And I have pretty much just been too lazy to upgrade it, to be honest. It's just, It does its job. I'm so dialed in with which patch is what. 10A is my Struggle Street organ and, 5B is the harpsichord and blah, blah, blah. It's just ingrained in my brain. So I don't know. I feel like I would melt if I changed it now, but it'll break one day. I've got a few cheat sheets on it too, which helps. And then probably, as I said before, on Puddinghead third album, our friend gave us an SH-101, the actual analog one, and that is so fun. And that's my true love synth, I think, still. I love it so much. It's the only one I kind of can understand and work around. And we toured that for a few years, and then, knobs start falling off and dials start getting crooked. So you're like, I better leave this in the studio. So now I play a digital version, which is fantastic because I can dial up the sound I need, basically, on the press of a button. Back in the day, I used to remember, frequency, res, envelope, all of those.
Wow.
A number, I'd be like 5, 3, 10, 10, 1 or whatever. So, which is just my weird brain working. But now it's easier just to press a button. And then my final keyboard is the Udo. It's so good.
Yeah.
And once again having the presets there and the patches and I love the aftertouch, and having a keyboard that has a sustain is obviously fantastic. And that's me now. I think I'm done. No more keyboards for a while. I never thought I'd 3 keyboard guy, but here we are.
Nothing wrong with that. And are you able to find, Paul, that given the diverse output across so many albums, you're able to recreate all the sounds you need on the Super 6, or you are sort of sampling stuff and loading that in? How are you sort of approaching that?
Close enough is definitely good enough in our band. So, yeah, and we kind of like, in a weird way, not being glued to the album, I guess, in a way. Like, we hardly played a click, you know, we don't try and emulate exact sounds on the albums. Otherwise, you'd sort of, I find we'd just get stuck and pigeonholed and you get in your own brain. And so, yeah, trying to keep it as rock and roll as possible. So, yeah, close enough, it's certainly good enough for us at this point.
I think that's the beauty of playing your own original music, right? It's your music and you can shape it and evolve it any way you want to. I wanted to ask you a bit about your live performance while you're on the subject, because my son's a big fan. He's 26 years old and he's seen you a couple of times, and he was telling me that you guys create a really fun energy on stage. So maybe two guitarists playing the one guitar. And he said, you know, and listeners and viewers, you can listen to the music yourself, but when you're in a live environment, it's really uplifting and a really great energy. So I'm just interested in, I assume that's a deliberate approach, but how do you as a performer make sure you're feeding into that energy properly to give the crowd that experience?
Yeah, good question, actually. I think we've always just gravitated towards playing live. I think we did it so much back in the day, and I think I know, you know, upcoming bands still play live, but I think really when we were starting in 2008-9, you had to, you know, cut your teeth doing that a lot to make a splash, I guess. And then so we just got so good at playing live and, you know, coming up with little gimmicks and, you know, funny tight endings and, you know, all those little live things you start doing, segues and jam sessions and all of that. And I think we've just held on to that all through the years. I think you need that separation from listening to an album. I think you need that spontaneity and all of those things. Otherwise, people just won't come back and see you. So I think we've always lent really heavily into that. You know, try and shake up the set list as much as we can. That always makes us pretty happy. Yeah, we always have a funny little back room sort of discussion. Sam and I are always like, let's play tons of new stuff and, you know, throw out heaps of weird B-sides. And then the twins are always like, maybe we should play the hits more though, because, yeah, that's why people are paying for their tickets. So we sort of meet in the middle there, which is good. But yeah, as far as like, I think we're just generally pretty positive, happy people, happy to play music. Like I think we're not trying to sort of force some sort of overly happy positivity out on everyone. But yeah, I think we just end up, doing that ourselves.
You mentioned when you first got together, you sort of, you realised you gelled like way back. And I guess that it's just an organic thing, isn't it? If you genuinely enjoy each other's company, enjoy the music you make, it probably just translates to an audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, amazing. And obviously, I mean, you mentioned before that you're aware you're in a guitar-focused band, that you're sitting on the outside a bit like most of us keyboard players are. But Paul mentioned, it's a high-energy band. What's the most difficult part for you in a live mix to get right in your in-ears? How do you need to have it set up so you feel settled, feel like you're part of the overall mix, but obviously not being drowned out, I suppose would be the words?
Yep. My in-ears mix is pretty disgusting. It's like a ton of me and Daniel's kick and snare and then a lot of vocal and then not much else. Otherwise I get too distracted, I think. Like in my head, I know what Dean's playing and Sam's playing guitar, but, it's a very keyboard heavy mix, that one. And that's pretty much, my mix. I find I really need to hear my keyboards well, which is so obvious, but otherwise I just start bashing the keyboards too much to hear myself better, and then your technique goes out the window. Not that my technique's anything good anyway, but, you know, then that starts going bad, and then you start rushing, and all of that. So I just need heaps of my keyboard, and a bit of kick snare and a bit of vocal, and I'm happy.
So my understanding, Paul, is that you are the keeper of all the stats for the band. And so you've just clicked over 600 shows, I believe. So when you look at like first 100, second 100, third 100, do you attach that to different phases of the band's career and things that happened, or what's the insight behind all this data, Paul? That's what I'm asking.
Very interesting. Well, I guess I've always had a very mathematical brain. Dad's the same. So I used to, count signs on long road trips as a kid and do, I don't know, weird counting things back in the day. And then, I don't know, Microsoft Excel is my happy place. So as soon as we're probably a few years in by the time I retrospectively went back and, made the spreadsheet, but we still had emails and, posters and memories and calendar entries and stuff. So the spreadsheet may have one or two missing, I'll admit, but it's pretty watertight now. I've kept it solid for the last 15 years. But yeah, I love getting back from a gig. I'll input the set list and, the date. I've got a code for every town name, and so you can see how many shows you've done in every state and how many shows on a Monday or on the 29th of the month or any stupid stat you want. I don't know. I like doing that, but good question. I reckon I remember I sort of remember the 100 milestones. So our 300th was officially the worst show we've ever played. That was in Margaret River. And I think Sam was crook and just the vibes were terrible and we played terribly. And yeah, that was not a good show. And then 400, we were in Sydney, maybe at the Enmore. And the 500th was the big one. We did that at the Horden. And so I think I sort of remember the specific show, I guess, that we did it for. So, and the 600th was one of the Oasis ones. I can't remember which one. Maybe the 4th, actually. So that's a pretty good milestone too.
Sorry, Paul. I was just going to ask, because you mentioned like your 500th was at the Horden and your 400th was at the Enmore. And these are, for those who aren't aware, might not be from, our listeners, most of our listeners and viewers are from overseas actually, but these are serious venues in Australia. Was it deliberately orchestrated that you'd play your milestone shows at these really cool venues, or is that just how it worked out?
Very, very fluky. I am the gatekeeper of the stats and no one else can see them. So sort of unless someone was doing a side hustle keeping their own, they would not know which show is which. So it's completely fluky. Yeah, because we'll often just get sent, hey, what does this tour schedule look like? And we're like, yep, or let's, do one more there or cut that. And then just, the Horden could have been the 4th show instead of the 14th on a tour. It's pure luck. Yep.
So how do you do the big reveal? Do you go, oh, by the way, boys, that was our 500th show, or are you waiting to go on stage and you go, I don't want to make you nervous, but
I'll give them the heads up. Yeah, if there's a big milestone coming up, like I think we were on 580 odd or something. I said, by the way, that Oasis show is going to be the 600th, which is pretty cool. So he's got to pray no shows get cancelled in the meantime.
Yes. And I do need to ask, as the keeper of the spreadsheet in my humble cover band, Paul, do you actually track which songs you play at each show? Have you gone that deep?
Yep. Which is a pain in the ass. I know there is a way in Excel to use formulas with words, if that makes sense. Like you can sort of see how many times you see the word "it's nice to be alive," like easily. Anyway, I've got to work that out. I have Excel friends who are better than me, but no, I have the spreadsheets all written out. So yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, look, I feel validated. And so just talking about the live playing and also your recording, obviously some of the most iconic moments in songs come from some of the weirder or different sounds. Like there's that stylophone type lead in Good Mood. There's what sort of collection of real world instruments have you actually accumulated? I know you said people would show you different things. I mean, obviously you've got what we see there in the shot, but have you accumulated other stuff, or you're not much of a hoarder in that respect?
Oh, I'm not too much of a hoarder. We'll play like some weird things. I've got this guy lying here, which is classic. This is called a pocket piano.
Yeah, lovely.
And then I think we got that for like $150 on eBay one time. But it's the main sound in our song "Hands Off My Body," doing the dip doo beep doo. And I think it's in Manny too, maybe. But it's like a really harsh sort of weird sound. But apart from that, yeah, my memory fails me a little bit, but nothing too crazy in terms of ridiculous instruments.
And is there anything out there that you've got your eye on, probably going the other end? Is there something you thought, I would actually like that at some stage?
Good question. A Mellotron would be so good.
Yeah.
But all of the good ones are impractical, aren't they? They're massive, and yeah, I need to upgrade my upright at home, and that's my main concern, to be honest. I hate having an out-of-tune piano at home. It's the most, that infuriates me.
We see you on your video clip for Surrender, which I know is a pretty historical clip now, playing on a little melodica. Has that ever made its way onto stage?
Good question. I reckon it probably did back in the day. Yeah, they're pretty crazy sounding. We use that a little bit from time to time. It's a nice little textural thing, I guess. Yeah, I wouldn't have played that for a long time, probably. Yeah. I forgot about it.
Yeah, well, listen, viewers can check it out. So check out the official film clip for Surrender, and you'll
Well,
see
the Alta
yeah,
time lapse growing up behind it. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
And that proves our credentials, Paul, because that was the song that got me into you way back. I think that was about 2012. So
Yeah, there you
it's
go.
a long
Wow.
time ago. And so here's a really easy question for you, Paul. What impact do you want to make in music across your career?
Wow, super simple. I think, yeah, we, as the years go by, I guess we see more and more of our peers drop away. You know, they call it a day and all of that. I think we don't have any, desire to do that anytime soon. So I think we're proud of what we've done so far. But yeah, I don't think it's, that journey's over just yet for us. I think we have strong ambitions to keep going, and we're 8 albums in, and we're already thinking about what album 10, the special album 10 will look like. And I just honestly don't know what else I'd be doing. So yeah, I think we all just.
And are you doing other stuff? I'm assuming you are outside of Ballpark Music. Are there other itches that you like to scratch creatively outside of the band?
Apart from playing chess and doing fantasy sports, not too much. Not at the moment. Yeah, I've definitely played with a fair few people, throughout the years, just doing, a tour on keyboard and helping them out if their main keyboards players out. But it's a weird life at the moment in terms of you sort of have to be ready for any show at any time. And then so if you want to dive into a bigger project, you need to, make it official, and it needs to be like, at the right time, because we'll probably start recording again soon. And so, yeah, sort of laying low at the moment after the big year. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is your process? You've just prompted me, Paul, in preparing for a tour. What is the rehearsal process for you guys, having been around so long? Obviously, there's new songs you tend to debut on tour and so on. So what is the rehearsal process for you?
Yeah, we'll probably. What date is it today? Yeah, we've probably got 3 or 4 weeks. We should probably get into it soon. is the first reaction. We're shocking. Like, we'll basically say Tuesday and Thursday, 10 till 2. Let's smash it out. Maybe for 3 weeks in a row, right? So 6 rehearsals. But we'll, dawdle in, have a coffee. We'll dissect the world news for an hour and a half. Sort of have lunch, and then at midday say, we should probably run a set once, and then we'll call it a day. So but we do a bit of prep, I guess, in the run up to it. Like, we'll start thinking about different songs we want to do, and what's the stage going to look like, and what's the vibe and the venues. Like, if we're doing more theatre-y shows, we might dive a bit deeper into some slower songs, and do we want to add musicians to it, or what gear do we need to upgrade? So there's a lot of pre-planning, but as far as rehearsing, we do plenty, and I think we play enough to not need too much, but it's more just a get together and touch base. Yeah.
You mentioned you're playing plenty, and obviously we've just heard 600 plus shows. So very busy band, very hardworking, playing to big audiences, big stages all over Australia and the world. You must have a great Trainwreck story for us, Paul. We ask all our guests this question. Tell us a time when something didn't quite go right for you.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question because I haven't had a shocker. I'm definitely due, touch wood. We've had a few, flights missed where we have to sprint on stage at the festival at last second, but I'm sure most keyboardists have that. There was this really funny moment. We, the Queensland government way back in the day, maybe 2010, I think it was, had a scheme where they basically wanted to export Queensland arts projects overseas. So we did this bizarre tour. It just sounds more bizarre the older it gets, but we went to Singapore to play a few conferences, and then to Vietnam, of all places.
Wow.
To play a few shows there. We rocked up we did a few shows in Singapore, which are relatively straightforward festival scenarios. And then we turned up to Hanoi, the capital, a few days later. And for this festival, we had to set all our stuff up the night before or the day before and perform our set to a representative of the Vietnamese government, just to make sure it was PC and, all of that. And then this must have been back in the day, but I didn't have a light enough keyboard. So I basically spec'd, on the rider, just give me anything to play without thinking about it too much. But I ended up getting this keyboard that must have been, 40 or 50 notes long, tiny thing. It had kids' stickers down the outside. It had the note names written on it, absolutely basic, no sustain or anything. And so I ended up doing our whole set. Thankfully, I only like really did piano sounds. But yeah, you can imagine the piano sound for that keyboard. But yeah, I did the whole set on that. So that was probably like the weirdest, like it wasn't a train wreck as such, but it was very bizarre.
It's amazing. Were they full-size keys, Paul?
No, it's a little bit smaller than usual,
Yeah.
of course.
No, that's definitely a unique one. No, that's amazing. Thank you. And then we've got our final question, Paul, which is the dreaded Desert Island Discs question. So 5 albums that have had a big impact on your life.
Yeah, I thought a fair bit about this. I enjoyed the question. I tried to do albums that I guess mainly influenced me, I guess, and I still love listening to, which I guess is the whole thing. First one I'll say is Oscar Peterson's Night Train. That is just my favorite jazz album of all time. I love his playing. I know some people are a bit off him because he's too riffy or whatever, too boring, whatever their word is. I love him. He's such a nice, fellow in interviews, and you can clearly see he loves the piano. And I feel that comes out in the album so nicely. And I think the piano trio is just the goat of jazz combos for me. I just love having the whole piano on array, and you can, and then everyone gets their own space. So yeah, that album for me, just very happy, upbeat, I remember Hazel said I can't remember which album it was, but she said in her interview with you guys, she said it's like her happy, put on the headphones on the plane when you're sad or whatever. That's mine. So that was that one. Second album, I have to drop a Doors album. So I'll say, I was torn, but I'll say Morrison Hotel.
Nice.
Just Roadhouse Blues is just such a bop. Like that song is, for me, like I love the piano triplets, the harmonica, the vibe, mentions beer, which is always good. But then, yeah, it has a few beautiful tracks down the back end. At our wife and I's wedding, she walked down the aisle to Indian Summer, and I think we played Blue Sunday straight after. So yeah, lots of sweet-natured songs on there too. And Queen of the Highway is pretty weird and has a few cool chord changes around that. And yeah, so I love Morrison Hotel, but yeah, LA Woman close second.
Yep.
And then what else did I say? I got to say Ben Folds 5. Whatever and Ever Amen. I remember hearing the title, the first track, One Angry Dwarf, and just the way he hits the piano in that song. I remember I must have been 10 or 11 when I heard it, and I was just like, that is cool. Holy moly. He bashes the piano, and he saw him play the other week too, which is so good. But yeah, he bashes the shit out of the piano, and I probably tend to do that too. I've probably got my technique from him more than anyone. But yeah, that album has just forever been my favorite album, so I love that one. The fourth album, how can I forget? Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. That was just, the first 4 tracks of Love Lies Bleeding into, what's track 2? Candle in the Wind, Benny and the Jets, and then the title track. It's just banger after banger. And there's the piano playing on that so good. I think it's the first time I realized a chord like F on A is cool. You know what I mean? Like on paper it sounds weird, but he just makes those inverted chords sound so awesome. And there's some cool songs back later in the album. Like I love Grey Seal, Ballad of Danny Bailey. There's lots. Yeah. Anyway, I love the piano playing on that one. That's probably the oldest album I remember hearing. And then my fifth album, I thought about for a while, but I thought maybe Snarky Puppy. We Like It Here.
Yeah. Nice.
I've always been into like the nerdier tech side of music without like having, technical crazy keyboards. I love, analyzing type signatures and chords and theory and all that stuff. And I remember hearing Lingus, the last track on that album, and it has that ridiculous Corey Henry solo at the end. And I was just like, this is outrageous. Like, where has this been all my life when I heard that? So I still put that on to pump myself up from time to time. Yeah, whenever they come to the country, I'll go see them. I remember seeing them back to back in Germany when I was over there. I was in Stuttgart, and then I was like, I've got to go to Berlin tomorrow to see them again. That was just so good. I'll throw them in there as my weirder choice, I guess. They're a bit naff, but I love it.
No, so do I. No, I think they're great picks, Paul, and I think it's indicative of your own approach to music. There's a lot of really positive people and players in there, and you're certainly one of them. And, it's been super great talking with you about what is very early in your career with lots more to go, and we're certainly excited to see what comes next.
Thanks so much, guys. It's been awesome to chat keyboards. I don't do this type of thing too often. So, yeah, it's been great.
There we have it. Paul, what a great guy the other Paul is. I think it must be just the name, mate.
Oh, there's no doubt anyone with the first name Paul is, as we say in Australia, a good bloke. He's a good bloke.
Look, that's open to interpretation, but that Paul, what definitely was. So no, I can't thank him enough. I can't thank him enough for his time. It was amazing speaking with him. And as I mentioned in the intro, do check out Ballpark Music. They are such an incredible band, and you know, across their more than half a dozen albums now, let alone their EPs and so on. There's just so much great music in there. I do find if I'm having a down day, as much as Hazel Mills might like some Oscar Peterson, I love some Ballpark music for some uplift. So definitely get onto that. So a huge thanks to all of you out there for listening, and particularly a shout out to our great gold and silver supporters. I'll start this time with Mr. Paul Heaton, or the Dreamscapist. If you want some great ambient music and just generally great music, I would argue, check out Dreamscapist, DREAMSCAPIST on YouTube. Paul's channel is amazing, and I hugely thank him for his support. Mike and the team at Midnight Mastering, thank you as always. Great work Mike does in mixing and mastering other people's creations. Can't recommend him. And Paul and I can both, hand on heart, say we've used Mike and are both happy customers.
Mm.
Absolutely. And then Tammy, the lovely Tammy, catch from Tammy's Musical Stew, which is where I'm going to take a segue, because as you know, we love pimping shirts. And Paul, this time has come again.
The time has come again, David. I've made an appearance with one of the cool shirts that Tammy sent me. And I really love this one because this is the Rock and Roll Society of Edmonton. And you might be going, well, so what? Well, so what? This is an amazing organisation that is all about promoting music for the community, bringing together professional amateur musicians, but also inspiring a love of music in youth. And I think that's so important because, you know, we hear a lot of people our age go, oh, you know, there's no good music anymore, and another legacy band is retired, or so-and-so has moved on to the next life. And, you know, the music these days is rubbish. Well, that's actually not true. There's a lot of, that's a lens we look at life through, but as you know, every generation thought the new generation's music was a little bit quirky and different. There are plenty of really great musicians out there, young people doing great original stuff. And yes, it's with guitars and bass and drums and, of course, most importantly, keyboards. So, really, really cool to be repping this shirt. Thank you, Tammy. We love you, and we love your support of our show. Thanks,
Absolutely.
David.
Yes, thank you. And then last but definitely not least, Dave Bryce and the team at the musicplayer.com forums and the Keyboard Corner, great place to hang and chat keyboards. And then actually second last but not least, the brilliant Dewey Evans from the beautiful land of Wales. Thank you, Dewey, for your ongoing support as well. Yes, he's a great guy. Hey, David,
before you say your final words, can I ask you a question without notice?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so here's my question. Does Joe Mascara still listen to every second of every episode, being the completionist that he is?
We're about to find out, Joe. So now you need to respond, and you need to at least message me on Facebook and confirm that fact.
Yes, exactly right. If we don't hear from you, Joe, I don't care whether it's a public comment on YouTube or a private message to David, we'll know something's awry, and we've exposed you as a fraud. So we expect to hear from you, Joe.
I'm pretty confident Joe will respond because he's definitely not a fraud. So that's good. Love it. So no, thank you all out there for listening. Do keep in touch. Editor at keyboardchronicles.com. We're on all the socials. And as I said, do consider, we also now have rationalized our offerings across Patreon, Substack and YouTube membership. So please consider one of those. As I said, it does help us keep going, and you get the same perks on any three of those platforms. There are marginal, a few cents difference between each of the three, just because of the way their pricing is set up. Choose the one that suits you. It all definitely helps. And a big thanks to those of you that have joined over the last couple of weeks. I won't out them as such, but we've even just had a previous guest join on YouTube, which is enormously appreciated.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, thanks all. But, yeah, enjoy. We'll talk to you soon and keep on playing.